This is Good morning, you guys. Welcome back to Dr. Kim's Going Live. Today, we're going to be discussing a big topic. It is going to be, how do I keep my marriage a top priority with a newborn or just even with children? I know, especially during the holidays, things get busy, and we want to make sure that your marriage stays a top priority. So, Dr. Kim, I know weekly date nights are a must in order to keep a healthy marriage. If I just had a baby, how long should I wait to start going back on a weekly date night?
I think you can kind of redefine what a date night is if you need to. I mean, we had like an official evening date, probably pretty early in 3 weeks, but we were really blessed to have family and people here that could take care of our first child.
Yeah.
And so that helps. I mean, obviously finding someone that you trust is really important, but you can be creative. If you can get somebody to watch your child for a couple hours during the day, make that a day date, or, go to lunch or go whatever it is together. It's just making sure you get some time away, just the two of you, where you can just enjoy being together. And those are really the fun dates. You have plenty of time to talk about the other stuff, but just enjoy each other. And, that's a great time of life. I mean, I loved when the kids were babies, especially the first one, because we found staying at home, which we never stayed at home before we had kids, was
Yeah.
something we really began to enjoy. And it was so, but I think you need those times away. So, we did about the third weekend, we had our first date. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have to leave your house to have a date. You can stay at home.
Absolutely. And maybe after you kind of get your kids nap time and know when, okay, they're going to sleep at least 2 hours here, hopefully. They don't always cooperate, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do something at home. We've got so many date design ideas at Awesome Marriage on the website, and just creative things. I actually, this month on the One Thing email, I'm doing a date night every Friday night. So there's an idea every Friday for having a date night.
That's awesome. I will make sure and add those links to the bottom of this when we get done.
Okay.
So, our second question, what are some practical tips to keep God first, my spouse second, and my child third?
I think you keep doing mostly, if what you were doing was working before the baby, keep doing that and quiet time with God each day. And I know that's kind of hard, but for most people, it helps if you have the consistent time every day. And so if you decide I'm going to do it first thing in the morning, well, if the baby wakes up, okay, take care of the baby and then do it afterwards. If you can do it before the baby wakes up, but make sure you do that. And then I think just being aware of God during the day, especially with the baby. I mean, you can just thank God for that baby all the time, or just every little thing you see in that baby.
Yeah.
I think making sure you have a quality time with each other. And so you figure out, when the baby's going to be asleep, when can we have this time,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff that you want to make sure that happens. And so I think making sure that you have your prayer time, making sure you have good quality time together, and then the date, like we talked about, all those things are really important to continue to do.
Yeah. So, this might be kind of a hard question for you to answer, but when you have a child, a newborn, how do you make sure it does not take the place of your spouse? I mean, because you have so much love for that baby, and I mean, it obviously is going to require so much attention. How do you make sure it doesn't replace your spouse?
Yeah, I think you have to be intentional about it. I think especially for the moms,
Yeah.
because it is, and you're being a good mom, and you want to do things, and it's new, and especially if it's your first child and all that kind of stuff. So I think you want to include your husband as much as you can. If you're where the husband can feed some, I always did like doing like a 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning feeding. It was just cool, and I loved it, and letting Nancy sleep a little bit then. So that involved me in that, because guys don't relate as much, I think, usually to a baby. That's not to a newborn. That's not universal, but as the mom does. I think with our son, I was like, okay, when can he throw a ball? It's like so, but you learn to enjoy those things. And then I think making sure you have that time with your husband every day. And I think sometimes that's the biggest challenge for a mom, because
Yeah.
you're tired.
Yeah.
But just to know that it's worth it, even if it's just 15 minutes, and maybe it's toward the evening, maybe after the last bottle or nursing before the baby goes down, that you just say, let's take 15 minutes here. And I've talked to a number of moms that said, yeah, I was tired, but it was worth it. We stayed connected. And that's what you want. I
Yeah.
think a lot of men feel left out when
Yeah.
the baby comes. And so I think that just helps make him feel involved and connected, and that he's still the priority that God wants him to be.
Yeah, I love that. So I know that this next question is going to obviously be different per person, and everyone needs to feel comfortable before they do this. But what about sex? When should a couple start having marital sex after a child is born?
I think that I would say as soon as possible. And
Okay.
I know, depending on what your doctor says,
Yeah.
obviously use your doctor's guidance. But I think it's such an important thing. I think it connects. I think it really helps in making your spouse feel that he is a priority, that you
Yeah.
know that's important to him, and that you want to make that important to you, so that can happen. I think it's something you need to talk about together. When you talk to the doctor and the doctor says you may need to wait, or whatever the doctor says, that it's nice that the husband hears that too at the
Yeah.
same time. And then you guys talk about, okay, and maybe the things you decide to do to be intimate without intercourse between
Yeah.
that time. And so, but you want to make sure that that's a continued part. I think it's a couples I see do that really stay connected, because it is just a great connector of physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
What are some ways that a couple can stay connected without intercourse?
I think spending time together. Obviously, there's no shortcut in that. Doing something for each other too. Let your spouse know. If you know what their love language is, lean into that at this time. Whatever that is, both ways, husband or wife,
Yeah.
to show that you care and that you're meeting that love language. You're just not kind of shotgunning out there. That you're really focusing on what their love language is.
Yeah.
So time together, love language, the word, just asking your spouse every day, how can I help you today, is really a way to let them know that you're thinking about them, you're caring about them, and that you want to be there for them. So there's a number of ways to do that. And I think what happens usually, we just get caught up in the day and we just don't do those things. And so put a reminder on your phone,
Yeah.
put a sticky note somewhere, just something that's going to kind of get you in the habit in this new season of life of continue making marriage a priority.
Yeah, I love that. Those are great tips. I know when Boone asked me if there's anything he can do for me, I always really appreciate it, no matter how big or small it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just the ask, and you may say, no, well, you don't think anything
Yeah,
today. But the
it's
fact that he asked,
it's just a thought.
yes.
All right, so our fourth question, prayer. Prayer is so important to keep doing or to start doing to build an awesome marriage. So, what do we do if we're simply too tired to pray together or are having different sleeping schedules due to the baby?
It is important, just like you said, and you want to continue to do that, or even maybe you start to do that because
Yeah.
it's such a connector between a couple. If you're too tired to pray, I would say find a time that works for both of you. You got to communicate on this. And it doesn't have to be a dissertation. I
Yeah.
mean, really, it's just, God, we're exhausted. We love you. We want to make sure that we're caring for our marriage. Help us to do that. Give us wisdom as parents. Just a few bullet points is fine, but it does connect you, and you're both praying for the same thing.
Yeah.
And you see God show up, because of those kind of things you're praying for, God wants you to have. And
Yeah.
so I think you have to make it a priority, even though you may be tired. Uh, if it's better in the morning before your spouse, or if you're staying at home now with the baby, or you're stay-at-home mom, before your spouse leaves for work, or just find a time that works for both of you in this season, and then hold it sacred. Make sure you do it.
Yeah. Did you and Nancy directly pray over Grant and Julie, or did you wait until they were older to do that?
I can remember praying over their baby beds.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were really young.
And that was kinda cool. I mean, babies are so cool when they're asleep.
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know, they're just like a little perfect little doll. They're laying there, and they're just so
They're a
sweet. And
blessing.
so, yeah, I would do that a lot with the kids, pray over them when they're asleep,
And
all
that's
the
another
while,
way to
really.
connect with your spouse.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so what if we both took off for maternity or paternity leave and now it's time to go back to work and we don't see our baby a lot during the day? So, how do we make time for each other while also being a good parent?
I think one of the things you do is that ours became during that time really after the kids' bedtime, whether it was young or as they grew, that even though we might be tired, and it's okay to put your bed, I talk to couples, it's okay to put them in bed early. I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong, if you're tired, but you want to have time together, put the kids to bed a little early,
yeah,
it serves it's a while before they know what time it is.
yeah.
And once they know, then you got to deal with that. But, that was always worked for us, because I worked every day and I'd get home about 6, and then we'd have dinner, family time, put the kids to bed, and then we'd sit down and talk, and then we might watch something or like whatever we'd do. We played a game some. We have trouble playing games together because we're both so competitive. And so there's very few pickleball is the first thing that we found that we can really do, but we're
Yeah,
usually playing on the same team, and so
yeah,
that's good.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this question kind of goes with the last question. What happens if one spouse is working constantly and their schedule is just so busy? How do we manage our time together while also getting to spend time with their child?
Um,
So, like, what if one spouse is working constantly and the other spouse is a stay-at-home mom or dad?
yeah,
And
I would say that I think working constantly is something you need to look at to start with.
okay,
because that doesn't really work. I mean,
Yeah,
because if there's no work-life balance in that, and so I think when a couple comes into me, and that's kind of the issue, I talk about, the relationship is really worth some sacrifices. So if, say, you're one of you's working or the husband's working 3 jobs, quit the other job and have some time at home and make the adjustments that you need to make. I don't think you ever regret that,
yeah,
of if you need to scale down, if you need to do something else, but the relationship is being taken care of, or those relationships, then I think it's worth doing that.
okay.
And so I think sometimes it's just kind of looking, what are we doing? We are in a different season of life now. It was different before we had a baby. Now we got a baby, and so some things may need to change.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of couples forget that. I think that just because a baby comes into the world, they think that their schedules are gonna stay the same, and I feel like most of the time they definitely change.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great advice. Okay, so we're gonna end with this question. What did you and Nancy struggle with most when you first became parents?
Yeah, I asked Nancy that this morning, and she said sleep.
Yeah,
And I think it was. I've got a great picture of her and Grant, and it was like he'd been up all night,
yeah,
and it's like I was leaving for work at 7 in the morning, and they are both totally conked out in the bed. They were just exhausted.
exactly.
So I slept, and I think for me, it was really trying to be aware of what I could do as a husband in those times to come alongside her, because there's things as a husband I can't do, but
Yeah,
there's things that I can to help her. And so for me, it was really being intentional about doing the things that I could do, maybe cleaning the kitchen, vacuuming, housework, things like that, and telling her just to go take a nap. And so I think that the challenge is sleep, and the challenge is also for the guys, how do we help her through this? How can I give her some extra sleep?
yeah. I
Uh,
love that.
because if she's rested, she's gonna be better with me,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know?
She's gonna wanna spend more time with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is unfortunately all the time that we have for today. If you guys have any questions for Dr. Kim, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, or even just send us an email. We will be happy to get back to you. And we hope you guys have a great week and happy Tuesday.
Thanks.